And a good bye-week Wednesday, Birds fans. Thanks for streaming in early with us here. I'm Birds 365. You got Mac and Mac, McMullen, and McDonald here to hang with you. We now have to show a little patience. We've got a lot of inside emotions about the Philadelphia Eagles, their start they're off to, the chances for this year, and then hurry up and wait because every team in the league gets a bye, and this happens to be the Eagles' bye week. And I think it comes at an opportune time for a couple of reasons. Number one, I always like middle of the schedule. I know some teams would prefer it a little bit later. I think it was Jim Foss who once told me, Jody, don't forget to include the preseason. If you want it right in the middle, make sure you add those preseason weeks because that's part of the season as well. Yeah, I don't know if I ever bought that, but Fossil told it to me, so I've always remembered it. Right in the middle of the season, about as good as it can get. So it's an opportune time for the Eagles, and I'll ask John about the injured player the Eagles have and what the extra couple of days they'll get here could mean to them. But, J-Mac, here's where I want to start. I ran this by my WIP listeners last night, and it comes down to confidence level. The Eagles have to have their own confidence level, but we relate with the fans, and thanks to those who have streamed in early here today, I'm more worried about their confidence level, Eagle Nation confidence level. I'm going to ask you to back it up, back it up 2 months ago. Go back to September 8th. As compared to November 8th, where we are today. That would be right before they went to New England to take on the Patriots to open up the season. Your confidence level at that point. The offseason is finished. They've made the moves they've had to make. They've had to make a bunch more since for varying reasons, and Howie Roseman has been pretty good at that. But the roster that they came into the season with, their positioning against everybody else in the National Football League, the schedule they were scheduled to play against. 2 months later, the results are now in. If you had confidence level A at that point, now 2 months later with everything that's transpired is confidence level B. Is it exactly where you thought it would be? Is it slightly better than you thought it would be? Is it markedly better than you thought it would be? Is it slightly less than maybe you thought it would be, or markedly less? How would you compare what your confidence level was just before the season started to where it sits here evaluating the 8-1 Eagles heading into their bye?
For me personally, more confidence. I thought they were going to struggle a little bit more with all the changes. We talked about a lot in the offseason, 5 defensive starters, new coordinators. I thought there would be a hiccup. There was one with the Jets, really more of a play than a game. They didn't play well, but they lost the play. They lost the game on one play. So I would say, from my perspective, they've been better than I expected them to be. I expected them to move slowly along. I knew they were going to be a really good team, that they're just too talented. But I thought it would be, they would grow as the season went on. And they pretty much hit the ground running and have the best record in the NFL. And, they're probably disappointed because they're not 9-0 at the bye. And they should be, to be honest. So, yeah, I think it's been better than anyone could have expected. But we talk about Eagle Nation, they're probably a little bit more disappointed than, because they don't have the style points. So, I think they're two different. From my personal perspective, yeah, much better than I thought it would. Maybe I thought maybe they'd have 2 losses, something like that. They have one. But I've been pretty impressed with how seamless it's been with the new coaches, the new defensive starters. They've had to go about it a different way. They're obviously struggling in pass coverage, so they've had to go about it a different way. But it's been pretty impressive.
I'll tell you where I'm at, and then I just give you the quick read on the responses I got over the 3+ hours I had it out there as a question for my listeners. I'm with you. I'm slightly more confident at this stage than I was going into the season. Not massively more confident because they have some issues, and we discussed them yesterday. We'll discuss them today. We'll discuss them leading all the way up to the Chiefs game, things that the Eagles could be better in. But A.J. Brown is arguably the best receiver in the league. I guess Tyreek Hill has better numbers, but it's damn close between the two. And I knew A.J. was going to be good. I remember the day that A.J. Brown, the Monday after, or was it? They cut the deal on Friday, so we probably did a Friday Birds 365. It was
day one of the draft, so it was probably Thursday night.
So we came here on Friday, and man, I got crushed both here on Birds 365 and on social media. And you were right there with me. I said I have him just outside of the top 10 wide receivers in the league. Because I went to him, here's how I would rank the wide receivers coming into before you ever put an Eagle uniform on. What he had done in Tennessee, I had him like 11th or 12th. He's certainly been a top 10 wide receiver since he got here to Philadelphia. He is far exceeded what I thought he was going to do. Coming into the season, certainly I would have had him as a top 10 wide receiver, borderline top 5, maybe 5th. He's number 2 at worst. If he's not 2, he's 1. And I think he's had just as good a season as Tyreek Hill. So, yeah, he's overachieved. And the other one that both you and I were fans of, but we couldn't have even believed that he was going to be as good as he has been. I didn't know Jalen Carter was going to come in here and be a dominant player his first half season in the NFL. I thought he'd be good. I thought he'd be able to step right in and make a difference. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. And I didn't know that was happening. So if you did, then you want to pat yourself in the back. Oh, he's good. I knew he'd be a top 3 or 4 tackle in the NFL. All right, you're smarter than me. But he has been that good. So it's an individual player thing. They have 2 guys that have just been significantly better than I thought they would be. Add that to the couple of phases of football where they might be still having to figure some stuff out. Yeah, I've got the Eagles as slightly, just slightly, but confidence is pretty damn high to begin with. So to be anything higher than the level I had at the beginning of the year is pretty good spot for Nick Sirianni to be in right about now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we say it all the time. We're at 27 consecutive regular season weeks. Pretty impressive run. This is the glory days of modern Philadelphia Eagles football. Sometimes I think people don't recognize that when they're in the midst of it, but this is not normal to be this consistent in a league pretty much defined by parity. Back to the days of Pete Rozelle, that's what they crave. That's what they want in this league. So every fan base thinks they have a chance, yada, yada, yada. Everybody loses. Everybody has bad weeks. So do the Eagles, but they usually find a way to win these games, even when they don't have their A game. And that to me defines, I always bring up the baseball analogies, that the starting pitcher that grinds through when he doesn't have his best stuff, that's the Philadelphia Eagles. They find ways to win games more than anybody else. And that, I think, is a trait. And I always bring up Danny Green as well. Told me back in the day, you brought up Jim Bossel, I'll bring up Danny, said winning's a habit. And so was losing on the other side of that coin. And they have a habit now, and they just win. And it's pretty impressive to watch.
All right, so I'm going to go devil's advocate here because we both just said we believe that the confidence level in this team should be even higher than where it was before the season started, which was at a pretty damn high level to begin with. I'm going to evoke the name of the 2022 Minnesota Twins. Minnesota Vikings. They could have made that same statement that you just made, Johnny Mac. We just find ways to win. Check our record. We just find ways to win. Yet you and I both sat here and go, Minnesota is tough to understand. They're tough to figure. Don't know how they're doing it, how they continue to win games. When they're bad, they're putrid, but they just continue to sneak win after win after win after win after win. We didn't necessarily believe winning was a habit with the Minnesota Twins. Why is this Eagle team better than that? I keep saying Twins. I'm in a baseball. You got me in a baseball mode, McMullen. Minnesota Vikings last year, who nobody, at least we weren't surprised when they went down week 1. You didn't really like the Giants either. Somebody had to win that game, right?
Somebody, yeah. But
the
that
Giants pick.
ruined the New York Giants, by the way. But
Yeah,
but
exactly.
continue.
So how do we?
Well, the Eagles have more talent, but that was the issue with Minnesota. Minnesota was a very good offensive team last year, but defensively was the issue, and it was an abject. This is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen, literally. Um, they couldn't stop anybody, and a lot of it was related to Ed Donatel. And I kind of said coming into this season, Minnesota might be better. Minnesota will probably be better, but they'll have a worse record because they sort of got lucky and got all those one-score wins. And all of a sudden, here we are. Now they lost their quarterback, so they're not going to be better. But if their quarterback didn't get hurt, they are better. They had a bad start, but all of a sudden the defense is better, even though they don't have a ton of talent because they have a much better coordinator. And they're a better overall team. I said the same thing about the Eagles, but on a different level because the Eagles have more talent. I didn't think the Eagles were going to win 14 games again. They might. they might do it. But I said they could be a better team even if they don't hit that same number. They have a more difficult schedule. They're right in the midst of the difficult part, all that kind of stuff. It's just, again, in a parity-driven league, it's difficult to be that consistent. But, the Eagles build the right way. They do. They build the right way. And they have one of the best offensive lines. They have one of the best defensive fronts, and they have a great quarterback. And if you have those three things, you're going to be in a lot of games, Jody. You're going to have an opportunity. Is the ball going to bounce your way every single week? Probably not. But you're going to be in most games if you have those three things, and they have those three things.
Certainly have that going for them. All right. One more note before we punch up our first guest. Mike Gill is going to jump in like he usually does at this time on Wednesday mornings. This is our buddy Ruben, Ruben Frank stat, and Rube comes up with some of these things, and it's got to be a lot of research behind him because I don't even think along those lines, and he looks them up. This millennium, John McMullen, which means from 2000 to 2023. How many teams do you think have started the season either 9-0 or 8-1 in their first 9 games? So we're looking at 23 seasons worth. How many teams do you think were either 8-1 or 9-0?
Say that again. Overall, or what? What is?
No,
what is
their
it?
first 9 games of the season, from
Yeah.
the 2000 season to this year, the 2023 season. So 23 years of seasonal results. How many teams do you think started either 8-1 or 9-0 in their first 9 games?
In their first 9 games, I don't know. Probably.
I'll put you out of your misery. There have been 40 teams that started the year either 8-1 or 9-0. And there's only one this year. That would be the Philadelphia Eagles, because everybody else has got at least 2
I'm surprised it's that high, but
it's
yeah,
40 in 23 years. Now it's 23 years. It's not like
that's a long period, but that's difficult to do. I'm surprised it's that high.
there have been 40 teams. Of the 40, how many teams do you think in those good starts of either 8-1 or 9-0 didn't win a game by at least 14 points in that season during that time frame where they went 8-1 or 9-0?
Probably very few. I'm going to say under 5. Generally, you're dominant.
Keep going down from 5.
2.
Keep going down from 2.
1.
That would be 1. And that would be the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, generally you're dominant when you're winning that many games. Yeah, I get it. Now, how many teams have gone 8-1 or 9-0 for 2 consecutive seasons?
That I do not know.
Do we have that? Do we have that?
I do not have that. But last year's team, including the Philadelphia, because you're right, they were 8-1. They had blowout wins. This year they have not. They have not had one win, a final score that they were up by 2 touchdowns or more. They're the only team this millennium who's gotten off to this good a start record-wise and not had a blowout win. It tells you, like you said, when you were running down the confidence level thing, Al Davis's favorite line, just win, baby. That's what they do. They just win. They don't always step on teams' throats. They don't always blow people out. They don't make it easy on you if you're watching the game, but they've won 8 out of 9
I'm trying
games.
to go through the games in my head, and I'm trying to go through because there's so many garbage points in the NFL. New England was a tough game, and it wasn't pretty. Minnesota was a game. Minnesota was down 20 in that game. I don't think it was as close as the final score. They dominated in Tampa Bay. They've struggled both games with Washington. I never got the feeling the Rams were even in it when they got going in the third quarter. I never got the feeling the defense was so dominant.
But the Ram game, you said early, did I sitting here watching? You were out there in LA.
No, early, yeah. The first half, I was like, oh, God, Cooper Kupp. Yeah, first half. And then they just took over in the third quarter. Miami, they were pretty impressive. In Dallas, they played just a god-awful fourth quarter, but they, for 3 quarters, I thought they were pretty damn good. So I just went through it off the bat. A couple dominant games. Only Washington. They played poorly against Washington as for what they should do. But division rival, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, they had trouble with the Jets defense, but the Jets defense is really good. The problem there is they didn't turn over Zach Wilson, which is you got to be able to do that. So those are the 3 games I'd look at and say, maybe could have been better. But the fact that one's a division rival kind of mitigates it. And I'll give you one bad game in 9 games in the NFL. Kansas City's had them, Buffalo's had them, whoever you like, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Everybody's had bad games. So,
And the Eagles have had one less than everybody else because they only have 1 loss. And that is something to certainly hang your hat on. But they have not been a team to blow out a squad. And, hey, last year in the playoffs, they blew out 2 opponents. So we know that they're certainly.
Well, what's the number? 14? So you got to be over 14? What was the number? Right. So, what does that really mean? Because they beat the Dolphins, who might be the best team on the schedule to date, them or Dallas, I would guess. They beat them by 14 points.
Right. More than 4. And the reason why that's a legit number is that's more than 2 full scores. Even if you push the 18 possibility, 16 possibility to the 8-point potential touchdowns, 14 is your regular 2 touchdowns. So it's more than a 2 touchdown victory. They haven't had 1. And it doesn't matter because you're 8-1. Standings are the most important statistic of them all, but they just haven't blown teams out this year. And hopefully it's not something that we come back to if the Eagles get picked off somewhere along the way in the postseason and go, why didn't they blow teams out during the regular season? Why couldn't they just step on somebody and kick them when they were down? You got to be able to do that. I hope that's something that doesn't come back for us to be able to look at. And one more thing while we're waiting for Mike Gill to join us. A lot of talk about the Detroit Lions. Watched a bunch of the talking head shows yesterday, and they're trying to figure out, because it's quote-unquote midway point of the season, who are the best teams in the NFL. And everybody's including that Eagles in the conversation, but they're going down the road of, and watch for those Detroit Lions. They've got an easy schedule the second half of the year. They've only got 2 losses. I know they haven't been in the playoffs forever, so we don't usually think of them, but how about those Detroit Lions? I got one question about the Detroit Lions, John. They win opening week in Kansas City, the Thursday night affair. That's a big win for them, 21-20 to win in Kansas City while they're celebrating. Not trying to downplay that win, but it was now 2 months ago. It was a while ago.
Well, they didn't have Travis Kelce, I believe.
Right. Kansas City without Travis Kelce for the opening game. Very good point. Thank you for adding that to the mix. Who have they beaten since? Because
Well, it's
we
not.
have to listen to that all the time here. For who the Eagles beat? Who the Eagles beat? The Eagles have played a cupcake schedule. We heard it last year. We've heard it to an extent again this year. Last 2 weeks, two of the last 3 weeks, Eagles have beaten the Dolphins and the Cowboys, who are both teams with very good records. Who the hell is Detroit beaten after that opening game victory against Kansas City?
But that's not the point. The point is, and they got waxed by Baltimore. I mean, just destroyed. I think Baltimore might be the best team in the NFL. I'm starting to lean towards that, but that's the whole point. They have the easy schedule, so it's not about who's the better team for me. I think the Eagles are the better team. I'm just talking about the number 1 seed. You can't hiccup because they have the easy schedule. Now they have a difficult game at the Chargers this week. If they win that game, and they may very well lose it, then I think they can really make some hay. With the Bears are not. I don't even think the Bears are playing at this point anymore. They want to get either the first and second overall pick or the second and third overall pick. So I think they're in full tank mode.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me ask you about that. And Gil's ready to go. We'll get to it in a second. Not really. They went out and added a key defensive player and signed him to a contract extension. Tank mode, you and I have discussed this before. It's less in the NFL than it is in some other spots. General managers tank. Players don't tank. Coaches don't tank. The guy who's putting the roster together tanks. And they didn't do that. They went out and got a better they upgraded their roster going into the trade deadline. So I don't think they're in tank mode.
Well, I when I say tank mode, as you point out, I'm talking NFL tank mode, not NBA tank mode. Like, you need good players. Ryan Poles has to figure out a way to convince these guys he deserves his job as well. So, and he's got to build up the team for next year. But an edge rusher can only do so much, and that's a very good player. But when you're not playing your quarterback and you're playing, what's his name? I always screw up.
Tyson Bagent.
Tyson and Tyler. Tyson and Tyler.
No, because Fields is legitimately hurt. It's not because they're
he was legitimately hurt. Is he still legitimately hurt?
Yeah, he can't even grip a football. He busted up his thumb, his throwing thumb.
No, I know the first few weeks, but now there were talk he was going to play this week, and they got the short week, and now they're saying he might not play this week. I don't think you're going to see.
Are you suggesting they're going to sit Fields the entirety of the rest of the year to make sure they lose games and finish? That somehow his thumb's going to get worse in November and December?
I think they're being very, very cautious, and you probably. Again, in the modern NFL, it's not like the old days. You have to sort of have medical evidence for doing certain things, as opposed to just completely shutting somebody down. But you can work some things in there as well. And by the way, they're still losing games with Justin Fields. So it's not, I think overall the Bears want to be as high in the draft as possible. That's all I'm saying. As high as humanly possible. And they want to be as close to 1 and 2 as humanly possible. And they're not going to go out of their way to win games. And if there's any decision to be made on a given week, they're going to err on the side of caution. That's sort of an NFL tank. It's not Sam Hinkie. It's not, Matt Geiger helped me win a game. Let's get him the hell out of here as quickly as humanly possible. It's a little bit different, but it does exist. And when there is a slight decision, they're going to err on the side of caution. And they stink anyway. So Detroit.
That's your best argument.
Yeah.
I'm not buying in what you're selling, but whether you got Justin Fields, you give your best effort, put forth your best roster, they can still lose anyway because they're just not that good.
Yeah, they just stink to begin with, and so do the Packers. And Minnesota's got players, but Josh Dobbs is going to be the quarterback, and that's an issue. Even though he had a great story, and that was a tremendous job by him. I mean, long term, it's still Josh Dobbs. They're going to win a lot of games. But I don't think, even if the Eagles have to go to Detroit, I don't think that people are going to be fearful of that. But you'd rather play at home is obvious from the Eagles' perspective.
And by the way, the Bears will help themselves a lot with their positioning in the draft this weekend because they're playing the Carolina Panthers. And they have the Panthers' #1 pick. And as of right now, the team with the worst record in the National Football League is the Carolina Panthers. So they can stick another loss on them. Yeah, it's going to hurt their own draft status by getting a win. But one way or the other, they're going to take a loss to the 2 picks that they have. I think the Bears will win this week. And I don't know if they're going to roll over as much as you think. All right, Johnny and I got off on a tangent. That's my bad. I apologize. The guy I apologize to is Mike Gill, because he's looking at me. He's got some kind of a nice T-shirt on. He's look, if he could reach through and hit me, I think he'd punch me. But I'm glad that this thing is virtual. So we get the tough guy, Mike Gill from the Sports Bash down at Shore, joining us next here on Birds 365.